Deputy General Secretary of the TUC. I'll be one of your compares this afternoon. Today, tens of thousands of us have come to London to demand better from this government. So let's hear you say, loud and proud, we demand better! We demand better!
Hello, trade union movement. It's great to see people here from right across these aisles. I'm Ros Foyer. I'm the General Secretary of the Scottish TUC, and we are united. We are united in saying we deserve better, we demand better, and we're going to speak today with one loud voice because the fight back starts here.
Hi everyone, I'm Shavana Taj, otherwise known as Shav Taj mostly. I'm the General Secretary of the Wales TUC. We are also here. Wales is also really proud to be here because unlike these bloody Tories, we've actually got a Welsh Labour government that does actually talk to us. We know what better looks like. Boris, on the other hand, that's a whole other story. That's what we're going to be demanding. Better for every single worker, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from. Every single one of you deserve a decent pay rise. You deserve pay justice. Okay, so are these on? No. I'll use this one. Okay. Right, we've got some amazing speakers for you, really, really good speakers for you. We're going to have workers up here, we're going to have general secretaries, we're going to have all kinds of people speaking today. I just want to give a big shout out to all the various different banners that we can see. There's lots of different unions, there's lots of different grassroots organisations that we work with very closely. So without further ado, I would like to invite Sue Ferns up, who is the president of the TUC.
Thanks very much, Shav, and wow, what a fantastic sight, and still we come, still people marching down Whitehall. Isn't it great to be here all together today, from across the country, from across the union movement, from different places, from different workplaces, but united here today with one message: we demand better. But you know, while it's so fantastic to see you all here today, we shouldn't be here at all. We're here because we've got a government that's run out of steam, run out of ideas, doesn't care about workers, and has left us with no other choice. We all know that the cost of living crisis is hitting workers hard. Everything's going up but our wages. Energy bills through the roof. Putting food on the table is costing us more and more, and you've got to empty your wallet to fill up your car. And worst of all, there's no government plan to do this. We don't have a government that can rise to this challenge. No plan to tackle in-work poverty, currently at its highest ever level. Dithering on delivering a just transition that will boost our energy security and stop us having to face these kind of energy bill rises in the future. And no sign of that promised employment bill, which means no effort to stop a repeat of the appalling P&O scandal. We're here today to say that we've had enough and we demand better. We need an industrial strategy to grow the economy and deliver good jobs, union jobs in every nation and region of the UK. A real pay rise and a real living wage for every worker, and properly funded public services that we all deserve, and fair pay for our tireless public servants. Friends, that's what we've marched for today, what we're fighting for, and we will carry on fighting. We demand better.
Thank you, Sue. We demand better. Next up, I'd like to invite Mark Savotka, the General Secretary of the PCS Union, to take the mic.
Thanks very much, Shav. Right, just because you don't read enough about it in the media, make a massive roar if you support the rail workers going on strike next week. That's it. And also, the PCS members on strike this week in the British Council, the college workers on strike, our postal workers balloting. Make a roar for every worker standing up and taking industrial action. Now, I just want to say two things. Firstly, this week we've seen a magnificent victory for our movement. PCS, working with anti-racists, charities, fair-minded people, we stopped the deportations to Rwanda. And the government has announced today they're now putting electronic tags on those people they didn't send away. If you think people should be welcomed here and treated humanely, make a massive roar to welcome people to this country. Now, here's my final point. We stopped the deportations because unions took bold action, working with grassroots campaigners. We saw demonstrations, we saw protests, we saw legal action. Now, we can't just stop with marching today. If you're a nurse, if you are a local government worker, a civil servant, a railway worker, a teacher, an education worker, or every other brilliant public sector worker, to get the 10% pay rise you deserve, we are going to have to take industrial action. And my union, PCS, is balloting for industrial action in September. So I say to everyone here, it shouldn't just be rail workers, it shouldn't just be postal workers and civil servants. If we all work together, march together and take industrial action together, we can defeat the government and get the pay rise we deserve. Solidarity, go back and organise.
Thank you, Mark. Next up, I'd like to invite Mick Lynch, the General Secretary of Nautilus International, to speak.
Okay, thank you. My name's Mark Dickinson and I'm General Secretary of Nautilus International. A small but not very well known trade union until very recently, thanks, I guess, to the outrageous actions a little over 3 months ago. 786 loyal and dedicated seafarers were disgracefully and illegally sacked by P&O Ferries. Sacked without notice or consultation. Not made redundant, but sacked. 786 people, workers with families to care for, bills to pay, saw their jobs cruelly taken from them in the space of 3 minutes of a recorded video message. That's right. P&O Ferries couldn't even look their workers in the eyes before they sacked them. Friends, following the news that our members were sacked with immediate effect, adding to the contempt P&O Ferries held their workers, they employed handcuffed trained security personnel, some wearing balaclavas, to force crew off their vessels. Vessels that are their workplaces, yes, but also their homes for most of the part of the year. They treated them as nothing less than common criminals. Except it wasn't Nautilus or RMT members who broke the law. It was P&O Ferries and their chief executive, Peter Hebblethwaite. Thank you. He even admitted to breaking the law when he was hauled in front of a parliamentary select committee over there, over the road. And what's worse, he said he would do it again. No shame and no regret. P&O Ferries' disgraceful actions have turbocharged the race to the bottom in pay and working conditions of seafarers here in the UK and beyond. We must not let this continue. We will continue to fight for our members and all seafarers, for justice, for accountability in the boardrooms, for action now. Friends, P&O Ferries should be a warning to every single one of us. This isn't just one bad apple. The weak employment laws in this country and further restrictions on the work of unions must be addressed. P&O Ferries must be a turning point. We need a new deal for workers in this country. We must join forces across the trade union movement and demand stronger collective bargaining rights and an end to exploitative employment practices like fire and rehire. We can only do this together. We must demand better. Are you with us? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next up, I'd like to invite Glory Mills, the chair of the TUC Race Relations Committee, to say a few words.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to bring you greetings from Unison and our equality team, our equality officers or members, and also our black members. But I want to speak about what's happening in terms of what black workers are demanding in terms of the government. You know, we sent first of all our solidarity to all workers striking for better conditions and striking for equal pay. Because as trade unions we exist. And the reason we exist is because we want to stop the unfettered abuse of management, corporate and government power. That's why we are here. And we are here. And we are here to resist. We are here to resist the corruption that we have seen taking place with the awarding of contracts under COVID. And I think we need to stand up now and demand that we protect and the government protect the public purse. It is not a piggy bank for corporations and for the Tory cronies. But we also need to send solidarity with all the workers in the UK who have been fighting to end privatization and also to get their jobs back in-house. So congratulations, well done to all of them who have won insourcing of their jobs and have actually restored a level playing field. But we must also support Chris Small and the Amazon Workers Union, because if we do not support them, we will not have trade union power in the workplace to make a difference. So we are demanding an end to racial segregation of the labour market. And we have seen how pernicious it is in this country, but how pernicious it is in America. And one of the biggest wins for the Amazon Labour Union is an end to the racial segregation in that company, where black people are stuck to the floor and the ceiling is so low that you cannot rise at any level in that organization. But comrades, this is happening in this country as well. So we want to say we are standing up and demanding equal pay. We are demanding equal pay for women. We are demanding an end to the gender pay gap. And we are calling for an end to the disability pay gap. And we are supporting our LGBT workers to have full equality, dignity and respect in the workplace. So we're demanding no more precarious employment, no zero-hour contracts. We want access to good paid jobs, pensions. And I want to say, we send our solidarity with the 1950s women, the WASPy women, fighting against state pension, fighting for their state pensions, and we must not forget them. So I want to say, comrades, let us continue this fight Together we will win. We will speak up, we will stand up, and we will be counted, and you will hear us louder. Enough is enough. We want an end to exploitation, and we want to see racial justice and equality in this country. Onwards, forwards ever, backwards never. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Next up, we're going to be hearing from some workers organising on the front line. We've got Lynn Marie O'Hara from Unison. Lynn joins us from Glasgow. She led the equal pay strikes at the council. She's continuing to represent and organise colleagues in current pay negotiations. And she's also a newly elected representative on Unison's NEC. Whoop, whoop.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome here, and this is an amazing day where the people, the workers, are out here in the streets, whilst the other people are behind their ivory towers partying. We were not partying. I have been very fortunate to be seconded to my trade union for the last 3 years, and I represent the low-paid workers in Glasgow. But it's not all about equal pay. That's a huge part of it. If you're not being paid fairly to begin with, and £500 million so far evidences the fact that we are not getting paid fairly, to then have this cost of living crisis or cost of capitalism crisis, we have to address the fact people need paid to go to work. They go to work every day and deliver the essential services, and now we have a cost of living crisis. If you are not getting paid correctly, and in Scotland, everybody here from Scotland, look out for that blue envelope come through your door, because if you think you're only worth 2%, ignore that envelope. If you know that you are more and should be valued more, get that envelope back in the post. What I also have to say is the cost of living has gone through the roof, and you're not getting paid fairly or squarely. No recognition, no value. It is an absolute disgrace. The people who I represent could not work from home, and that is no disrespect to the people that did keep things running behind the scenes. They were out there cleaning. When does cleaner become a job with a capital C, like a doctor has a capital D, or a member of parliament has capital letters? Cleaners and your caterers, your janitors, your education support staff, home care, social work, the list is endless of the people that were out there sacrificing their lives every single day and not getting pay recognition or valued in society. And another thing, you should not have to be worried about how it is that you heat your home or you eat. The thing is, if you are going to address what the climate injustice is in this society as well, in this world, it's not a case of I can't afford to heat my house and that's me job done. The point is, get things done properly, and let's start these rallies every weekend, and let's get a general strike. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Next up, I'd like to invite Yvonne Thomas and Patricia Gambria from GMB. Both Yvonne and Patricia are care workers from Birmingham City and Midlands. Both were key workers during the pandemic. They played a pivotal role in protecting their colleagues and made sure that all of the people that they were caring for were safe as well. And they are GMB workplace reps. So over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Yvonne Thomas, GMB rep and president for the C40 care branch. As a care worker, I've seen firsthand the issues facing care workers. The stress of finding ways to cope with the increase in inflation.
Thank you. My name is Patricia. I'm a mother, I'm a care worker, I'm a lecturer, and I am a GMB member. As workers, we demand better sick pay. Why should we go to work while we are sick? Simply because we are afraid of being paid £99.35 per week. It's not even worth the price of petrol. We deserve better sick pay as workers. Thank you.
The GMB Care Branch has put a motion into Congress asking for a person-centered legal ratio of carers to service users because we are overworked and overlooked by this Tory government. Yes. We are living in the worst economic crisis in 30 years. The GMB has launched the Fight for 15 campaign. Support care workers. We demand better. Thank you.
We demand better. Thank you, Yvonne and Patricia. Next, I'd like to invite Kieran Stoneley, who is a rep from Unite, to come and say a few words.
Good afternoon, comrades. I'm happy to be here this afternoon representing Unite Wales and a branch secretary for Tata Steel in Shotton in North Wales. I'm a steel worker in North Wales and I'm angry. Angry about the rise in the cost of living, angry that workers are facing wage cuts. Together with collective bargaining, we can make this world a better place. Solidarity with everybody, and we demand better. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all of our speakers. I'm now going to be handing you over to Paul to take over the next section.
Thanks, Shav. Let's have a huge Parliament Square welcome for the General Secretary of the TUC, Francis O'Grady.
I just got to say, it is fantastic to see workers from all over the UK, every walk of life, being proud. Workers are united. And we've got a message for every tight-fisted boss, every Tory minister. Enough is enough. We want decent jobs, an end to zero-hours contracts, a new deal. We want to stop fire and rehire. And I make no apologies for this. Every single worker deserves a pay rise. Now I see that Transport Secretary Grant Shapps, he's threatened rail workers that they will strike themselves out of a job. Well, you're wrong, Mr. Shapps. If you keep stirring, come the next election, you'll be out of a job. And he can take the rest of the cabinet with him, because this cost of living crisis is Tory made. The Tories chose to cut universal benefit. 4 million children in poverty. Shame on them. The Tories chose to cut nurses' pay and all public services pay. So we've got nurses and care workers queuing up at food banks. And when P&O disgracefully sacked 800 workers, the Tories chose to do nothing. Sweet FA, nothing. Shame on them. So let me say this to Boris Johnson. Don't you dare shift the blame for inflation onto working people. Don't you dare, not after over a decade of austerity, privatisation and pay cuts. Don't you dare tell working families we have to put up with more pain. What about bankers' bonuses? What about the boardroom raking it in? What about corporate bumper profits? It is time to raise taxes on wealth, not workers. And I will end with this. This demo is just the beginning. We have got a programme of action. This is just the beginning. We are going to stand up for our pandemic heroes. We are going to stand up proud. We are going to stay strong. Join a union. Encourage your mates to join a union. And together we will stand proud and we will win. Thank you.
And if you're not a union member, click on the QR code and join a union today. Now let's have a huge Parliament Square welcome for Christina McAnee, General Secretary of Unison.
Thank you. Thank you. It is so fantastic to see so many people here, and so fantastic to see so many Unison flags, but all of the unions that are here, thank you so much for turning up for this. And I heard everybody shouting as we were passing Downing Street, and that's what it's all about. It's about us saying to them, we demand better, and we will not put up with the rubbish that you give us day in and day out. And you know what? They just do not understand us because they are not like us. And when you think of some of the mad things they've done, I mean, the £840 wallpaper, was it £20,000 to build a swimming pool in Rishi Sunak's garden? Who does things like that? Not us. And when they tell us that we'll ruin the economy because we're asking for pay rises, do you know what? I'll tell you what, when they give us pay rises, when they give our union members pay rises, how many of you go out and spend it on stocks and shares or buying second homes? Nobody. You spend it in your local communities and you rebuild local high streets. That's what we do. I am never apologetic for demanding decent money, decent pay for my members and for public sectors and for all workers across this country. Because all you have to do is think back to the worst days of the pandemic and the people who were holding the hands of dying patients in hospitals and care homes were our members while they were partying in Downing Street, an utter disgrace. And I frequently get asked by journalists, but surely your members, people who are care workers and NHS workers and social workers, they won't really take strike action, will they? Well, yes, they will. Just next week, we have a strike in the southwest of a group of our care workers who work in St Monica's Trust. Shame on them. They're introducing fire and rehire tactics, and our care worker members are taking strike action and will have the full backing, not just of our union, but I'm sure of everybody here. And so, the strong message we send out from today is, we are resolute, we are strong, we are up for the fight. But we have to work together as trade unions. We have to work together within our own unions, but also across the union and labour movement. And once we get that done, we as a movement can take back control, can tell these Tories that we will not put up with this any longer, and we will not put up with our members having crap pay rises while inflation's running at 10%, and they live the life of luxury and are able to, as Francis said, tax the poorest in this country, but not tax the wealthiest. So I am so pleased that we're all here today. Thank you so much. Keep up the fight.
Thanks, Christina. Now let's make some noise for Sharon Graham, the General Secretary of Unite the Union.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. And thank you, friends. I bring a clear message from thousands of workers in Unite who have led over 300 disputes in a matter of months, covering 52,000 workers. Now is the time for action. And to those workers still on strike, from our bin workers in Coventry to our reps in Caterpillar, we stand with you. Make no mistake, we stand with you. Solidarity. I think it's important for us to talk about why we need action and why we need it now. Well, workers know the hard truth that once an employer chooses the path of confrontation, moral arguments and round tables are not going to change one damn thing. And let's be clear, it's employers that choose that path of confrontation, not workers. They choose it every time they fire and rehire workers. Every time they get rid of good jobs, every time they decimate our communities, and every time that they choose to close final salary pension schemes. Well, no more. The trade union movement has to now be reborn. We've got to come and be reborn. They might call it the summer of discontent. We call it the summer for fighting for jobs and decent pay. Friends, workers are being lined up to take the hit for this crisis, a crisis not of their making. And at the same time, we are being conned, we're being lied to, we're being taken for a ride by the rich and the powerful. But we're not going to allow it. How dare the Governor and the Bank of England call for pay restraint, but ignore huge profits? We will not be doing it. I just want to talk a little bit, friends, about the wall of silence that's going on, about profiteering. And I think we need to call it out right now. We're in negotiating rooms and we're hearing it. But let's hear the truth. The profit margin of the FTSE 350, the biggest companies in Britain, have gone up by 70% since before the pandemic. And I'm going to repeat it because it's important for us to know it. The biggest companies in Britain, their profit margin has gone up by 70% since before the pandemic. It's not wages putting up inflation, it's profits. So deal with that, Prime Minister, before you come after workers' pay. Friends, we need a national conversation. The economy is not working for everyday people. Politicians have failed. They do not represent the interests of workers. That is why we must now take action ourselves. We are not going to get change by lobbying in Westminster. The only way we're going to get change is by doing this ourselves. So friends, let our heroes be in number. Let them be the collective. This is what matters now, and we cannot forget it. The baton has been passed on to us. Workers and their communities are watching. So it's time to stand on our own 2 feet. Stop apologising. Be proud of who we are and do our job and fight for working people. Solidarity.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay. Our next speaker is from the GMB Union, Ria Wolfson-May. Ria.
Thank you so much. Gary Smith, General Secretary, sends a solidarity. Sorry I can't be here. My name is Ria Wolfson. I work with GMB. Over lockdown, I organised with care workers, cleaners and refuse workers in Glasgow. We fought tooth and nail for the most basic facilities to keep them safe. Care workers balloted for strike action to get testing, and workers took on the government for PPE. But across the country, workers were going to work in bin bags to protect from the most vicious disease that killed millions. Bin bags. That is what I see when I look at this government. Bin bags. Workers were promised a new normal. Key workers would emerge out of the pandemic into a society that finally valued their labour and a government that recognised their worth. Lies. All lies. We have a government that turned our care homes into morgues. Whilst they bevied and laughed at us, and their political elite pals like Andrew Bailey, the governor of the Bank of England, who takes home over £500,000 a year, urges wage restraint for our members. Our care workers taking home a penny over the minimum wage. It's disgusting, and something has to radically change. GMB found out this week, speaking to our members, that almost half of workers are having to borrow money just to make ends meet. Half of workers. Comrades, we aren't just fighting for roses anymore. We're fighting for bread. But just as in the workplace, we know that power is never given, it must always be taken. This government will never deliver for working people. But working people won't wait for Westminster. The time is now to get organised in our workplaces and in our communities. This week, GMB Congress celebrated our members in Biffa and Wealden, who won a 26% pay rise after 8 weeks out. Our sisters in Glasgow and Dundee and Birmingham and Asda are taking on their employers in their tens of thousands. Across the country, workers are angry and are taking action. Our power has always been and will always be on the shop floor. And workers aren't just demanding better, they're fighting for it. And GMB and our sister unions will stand by them every single step of the way. Solidarity.
Thank you, Ria. Now, before I introduce our next great speaker, bit of a public service announcement. We've got thousands of people still on Whitehall, and we've got some gaps in the middle of the square. So I don't want to encourage a stampede, but if people can move up gently and fill those gaps, because let's get every comrade that wants to get onto Parliament Square off Whitehall to hear the speeches. So our next great speaker is the Joint General Secretary of the National Education Union, Kevin Corney.
Thank you, Paul. Brothers and sisters, this is an amazing demonstration. This is the biggest TUC demonstration since 2011. This is big enough that all of us can go back feeling positive and thinking that we can do more. I've been really proud to march at the head of a bunch of education workers from my union, the NEU, from the NASUWT, from EIS, from the NAHT, from UCU. They're not in the square. The square isn't big enough to have them in, but they are here and they're at the back. They're hopefully listening on the screen. And I tell you, education workers are seeing one aspect of the crisis. They are seeing child poverty face to face. They are seeing child hunger in the face. In this, the 5th richest country in the world, children are going hungry. Their parents are going hungry because they give up meals to feed their children. And I tell you, child poverty has been going up in this country since 2010, but it's going up a lot faster now. In the 3 years since 2019, the number of children on free school meals has gone up by 49%. 1 in every 4 children on free school meals. I tell you, that's not levelling up, Boris Johnson. That is a record of failure. It is a record of failure. I tell you, that child poverty crisis, that child hunger crisis, that cost of living crisis is actually a wages crisis. They used to tell us that kids were poor because their parents were unemployed. 3/4 of poor children in this country have parents who are in work. The crisis is a crisis of wages. The crisis is a crisis of poverty wages. And now they have the cheek to tell us that us having wages will cause inflation. Well, let's look at the record. Teachers, and they're not different to other workers, since 2010, pay has dropped by 20%, by a 1/5 in real terms. That's happened to other workers too. It's even worse for school support staff and for supply teachers. That's what we've had so far. And now the Bank of England says 11% inflation in September. Nadim Zahawi says we're going to get a 3% pay rise. That's a further 8% cut on top of the 20% cut. It's not on. They say I'm saying it's a wages crisis. It's not a banker's bonus crisis, though. They're at the highest levels ever. I'm saying it's a wages crisis. It's not a profits crisis. Profits are a greater proportion of the economy than ever before. So what I see in the press this morning is Boris Johnson is worried about public support for the RMT. He's right to be worried. We're coming for them. We're coming for them. This is the start. This is the start. This is not the end. The demonstrations are going to go on. More demonstrations, more meetings, more lobbies, more strike ballots. Victory.
Thank you, Kevin. And now we're going to hear from some workers on the front line. And the first worker we're going to hear from is Ali Haydor from the GMB. Let's hear it for the GMB. Ali's an Uber driver in Southampton, and he's the chair of the GMB's National Uber Drivers Branch and a union rep in the southern region. Let's have a massive noise for Ali.
Fight back! Fight back! Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. As the GMB national rep for Uber drivers, I can tell you our drivers are struggling to cope with the current fuel prices. The 5p cut on fuel duty has done nothing to help them, and I worry many will leave this vital industry due to the current crisis. Yet this government is doing nothing. Now, when the powers to be fail to act, the unions always step in, fighting for their members, always. Friends, I'd like to share with you GMB's recent success. The GMB Uber agreement has produced one of the best working contracts in the country, providing protection to thousands of drivers, giving them strong voice at work. Drivers are now receiving national living wage, pension, holiday, sick pay, and at the same time, full flexibility when they work. That's what I call proper work-life balance. Now, that's what GMB has done. That's what unions do. Make work better. Let's send a clear message to Boris and his mates. We will no longer accept their pocket change. We demand better pay now. We demand our society roots out racism, discrimination of all kinds. Out, now. The country deserves better. You deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Our next frontline worker is Jackie Thomas, Community Unionist steelworker from South Wales, Port Talbot. Give Jackie a massive roar, please.
Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today because I have seen firsthand the impact of the loss of industries in communities like my own in South Wales, and I'm sure like all your communities across the country, by the torture by the Thatcher and her cruel policies at that time. We know that climate change is the greatest threat we face today, and we know that fighting it means decarbonising all of our economy. But we can only achieve a green transition if we help our industries decarbonise, like steel. In that way, we can protect our jobs, our communities, and the members I represent. The steel industry has tens of thousands of high-quality jobs across the country in some of the most disadvantaged communities. Steel jobs are good union jobs and support the families and communities. That's why we are fighting to protect our jobs as we decarbonise, which means giving the industry and the thousands of workers in it the support to adapt. But we can't do that without the government stepping in to reduce the energy costs, not just on the industry, but the whole of the communities. Drop the fuel costs so that we can help our communities and we can get to work. So I'm delighted to be here today with steel members across the community and our movement, because we demand better for the transition for workers, we demand better jobs for the future and for the future of our planet, and more importantly for the future of our generations to come. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Jackie. Our next frontline worker is Jill Taylor from the Chartered Society of Physiotherapists. Jill's the CSP steward, chair of the union's employment committee. Again, let's hear it for Jill.
Thanks, everyone. Chess work. Sharp end of the biggest living standard squeeze for decades. Every day I'm talking to members experiencing food and fuel poverty. We went above and beyond during the pandemic. and my BAME colleagues were disproportionately exposed to COVID on the front line, but we are now unable to make ends meet with NHS wages. Staffing levels are dire. More than 100,000 NHS posts are vacant, and the implications for patient care and health inequalities are terrifying. After a decade of austerity, there isn't one easy solution to get the NHS back on track, but there are things that this government must urgently do, including a decent pay rise for everyone, making sure NHS staff are paid at the right level for the work that they do, and pay us properly for our overtime, protect us from limiting excessive hours. Without these measures, NHS workers will continue to leave in their droves. We need to hold this government to account. We deserve, no, we demand better.
Thanks, Jill. And comrades, can I encourage people still to come towards the front, because we've still got thousands of people on Whitehall who can't get in. So if you can, please fill up the gaps. Let's get as many people in as possible. Now, we've heard this afternoon from unions representing millions of workers, but this is also about reaching out to everybody in our community. And we know 160,000 people unfortunately lost their lives during the pandemic. Many of them lost their lives because of the inaction of those in Downing Street. And that's why I am privileged now to introduce Salia Hassan from the COVID Bereaved Families for Justice. Salia is a GP. She worked on the front line throughout the pandemic. Please show your appreciation and support for all of those families.
Friends, I just want to say thank you so much for being here today, for so many important matters that are going to be discussed. Thanks for joining us. So I'm Salia Hassan. I'm an NHS doctor. I worked in A&E and intensive care during peak COVID waves. I lost my own father to COVID whilst I was busy working in ITU. And I'm sure there are people here who have lost just like me. Like all of us here, COVID-19 Bereaved Families for Justice demand better. For over 2 years, we've called on the government to start the inquiry into the pandemic, to learn vital lessons and save lives. If they truly cared, if it really mattered to them about learning these essential lessons to save lives, the inquiry would have started already. Why are they stalling? What else are they hiding? Over the river, not far from here, from Parliament, stands the National COVID Memorial Wall. Please go and visit it. Over 196,000 lives have been lost to COVID, and they are still being lost to COVID. But still, the inquiry is yet to have formally started. More dither, more delay. Those of us who have lost loved ones to the virus, the country can't keep waiting. I lost my own father, Ahsan al-Haq Chowdhury, a dedicated teacher, a father, a husband to COVID. He caught it in December 2020, whilst number 10 down there partied the nights away, planning their secret Santas. Whilst they worried about making sure their fridges were stacked for their party night shifts, my night shifts were very different, and so were yours. Whilst they threw up from too much booze, the rest of us prayed for our loved ones, fighting to live, fighting to breathe. It's disgusting. Whilst they partied, I worked in ITU, in head-to-toe PPE. So did my colleagues, unable to let loved ones of patients in to say their final farewells. Yet at number 10, their own rules were repeatedly broken and trampled on. Whilst they had their Christmas parties, my dad caught COVID. Whilst they celebrated, my dad and so many other dads, mums, sons, daughters, wives, husbands, grandparents died. Over 200 people each week are still losing their lives from the virus. Our NHS staff are still fighting daily to save people, but still the process from the government to learn from its mistakes has not formally begun. Why? What are they afraid of? The truth? When it does start, we must be front and centre. An inquiry that does not root itself in the lived experience of those who've lost loved ones, those who suffer from long COVID, the immunised communities, immunocompromised communities who are still at home shielding, and those who fought against the virus day in, day out, will not get to the bottom of the challenges we face. We must be at the centre of this, to learn from the mistakes that were made, the lives that could not be spared. Our message to the government and the Prime Minister is clear. No more delays. Get on with it. We, you, and those who have gone, and the country, demand better.
Thank you, Salia. Absolutely powerful, powerful stuff. If I can encourage comrades still to come forward, I can see the RMT have just come in to Parliament Square. Welcome to the RMT. We've got other unions coming in. And let's give them a big cheer. 40,000 rail workers out on strike next week. We've got two more brilliant frontline speakers for you now. People who Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak asked us to clap for 2 years ago and then imposed a pay freeze on them as a token of their appreciation. So please put your hands together for our first frontline speaker, Casey Legall from the Fire Brigades Union, based in Leicester, active in her workplace, and the Brigade Union Women's Rep. Casey.
Thank you. Comrades, like many workers, I worked throughout the pandemic. And like many workers, I work hard to make a difference. Unfortunately, like many workers, this government and the bosses continue to restrict my pay, forcing me to take difficult decisions on how to best provide for my partner and my daughter. And they have no idea of how to make do and go without, while big profit businesses continue to make more money than ever before, all while the government refused to seriously tax the rich and spread the wealth, which would help both me and you not have to decide between eating or heating. This government is quite frankly a sham and showing absolute contempt for us workers. And it's them that are to blame for this record high inflation we are experiencing and this daily cost of living increase. They must change their policies now to prevent families like mine, like yours, from making and facing the real prospect of going without heating and food, which is the very sad reality many families are already experiencing. We demand fairer pay, we demand the end to the cost of living crisis, and we can get it. Don't let them cause division. We need to be united and stand together. Let's be the force this government and their making money mates fear. Join a union. Get your friends to join a union. Create unity through all workforces and stand up to the bosses. Comrades, let's make this a start of a campaign that sees real change. Thank you.
Well, you heard Casey. Join a union today. Join a union today and get active in your union. Our last brilliant frontline speaker is Bella Fashola from the RMT. She's one of the lead organisers in the Churchill strikers fighting for outsourced workers. Bella, over to you.
Thank you. Hello everyone, comrades. Lovely to see you all here today. My name's Bella. I'm a proud member of the RMT. I'm also a very proud cleaner. Like most cleaners, we are on the bare minimum. My cleaners on Churchill's have been on strike now for 12 days. to strike until we get what we deserve, because we also demand better, like everyone here today. We will not stay on the bare minimum for any longer. United we stand. 40 different nationalities of cleaners standing together, organising themselves on the picket lines. In the pandemic, we worked like many other key workers, keeping the trains sanitised and clean so that other key workers could travel. What do we get in return? We have to clap for ourselves on a Thursday, come to pay talks and Churchill don't want to give us a penny. We need to end outsourcing. Outsourcing has absolutely no place anywhere in this country. Privatisation is wrong. Everything should be in public ownership. Why should we slave away doing our labour to put profit in these fat cats' pockets? I refuse to allow it to go on any longer. Thank you for having me here today. Let's all demand better. We demand better. Solidarity.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bella, from the RMT. I'd like Boris Johnson to hear our power, and I want you all to repeat after me. We support the RMT. We deserve better. We deserve better. We support the RMT. We deserve better. We support the RMT. We deserve better. Now, we still have thousands and thousands of people trying to get to Parliament Square. So can I ask the people at the back to fill the gaps, move into the square, and let our movement into the square so that we can all hear. We are massive today. We are strong and we are powerful. We've got some fantastic speakers for you in this final section of the rally, and I'd like to now introduce another leader of another fighting back union, Joe Grady, the General Secretary of the UCU. Make some noise.
Hi. Friends, comrades, I am the exceptionally proud General Secretary of UCU. You will know that we are a militant union, a union that has been out on picket lines this year. And if you've joined our picket lines or helped in any way, thank you very much. It means the world to us. And it is amazing to see so many people here today. It has been a decade since we had a massive march like this in the Labour movement. But I want us to be really clear about why we are here today. Because tens of millions of people are not just facing a cost of living crisis, they are facing a cost of existing crisis. A crisis imposed by political choices, a crisis that, let's be honest, friends, is class warfare from this Tory government. The Tories are imposing, they're choosing rather, to protect the wealth of their super rich mates, often their own wealth as well, let's be clear about that, Rishi Sunak. Protecting eye-watering profits for shareholders, and all of this is at the basic expense of our people, the basic necessities that we need. And we see this in our union. We're a union that represents 120,000 people who work in post-16 education. We teach people in further education, in universities, in adult education, and we also teach people who are in prisons and detention centres. So we are here to demand better, but what we're also here to do is to give each other courage and faith, because that's what sustains us. It's what sustained us on our picket lines. And we know that when workers come together, we can advance our collective interests and transform the world. And that is what's got the Tories terrified. And they are rightly terrified about the RMT coming out next week. They have been terrified about the sheer amount of industrial action happening in education. There's a reason they're coming for unions, and it's because they know of the power that we have together. So I'm just going to leave you with a few things that, for me, demanding better means. It means free education. It means a £15 an hour minimum wage. It means rent caps. It means affordable houses for everyone. It means the elimination of precarious employment. And it means nationalised mail, rail, energy and water. And comrades, let's be really, really clear. We will not be handed these things. We are going to have to take them. We have some political allies, that is true, but to win these changes, we need to tirelessly build strength and density, workplace by workplace, union by union, and take industrial action if we need to. So I'm going to leave you with that. This is a historic moment for the Labour movement. We are stepping up and being recognised. Seize it. If you're not in a union, join one. If you're in one, get active. Solidarity.
Thank you, Joe Grady. Thank you very much. And the next speaker I'm going to introduce to you is another leader of another fighting back trade union. The CWU are balloting their members right now. They deserve our solidarity. And here is their General Secretary, Dave Ward, to give it to you.
Yes. Yeah, look. Hi, everybody. Thanks for turning out today. This really is a moment. It's a huge moment for all the unions here, for the whole of the movement. And I'm here to bring solidarity from the CWU to all workers at the moment who are fighting for higher pay and for proper jobs. And there's plenty of you out there, including in our own union, post office workers who have already taken 4-day strike action. Over 40,000 telecom, EE, Openreach workers who are balloting as we speak here and now, and they'll be joining us soon. And over 115,000 Royal Mail postal workers who'll be balloting in the next couple of weeks. So that's why. And look, I do want to make a special mention to the RMT. And I'm here to say to all those people in the media who are trying to spin it that rail workers haven't got support, will bloody have a look out here today. We're 100% behind you. And I'll tell you why. That support is going to grow. Because we're building a movement where every worker counts or no worker counts. So look, this is very, very different to anything we've done in decades. This is about fighting for a new deal for workers, and it's about fighting for a new social settlement across the UK. And what's very different about it is, it ain't going to be led by politicians. It's going to be led by trade unions, community organisations and all these inspiring young workers on the front line. Look, there are three key strands to what we need to do. In the CWU, we love a plan. We love to set out what's next, and that's what's crucial now. And the three strands we're saying: one, we are going to transform the world of work in the UK. We're going to create the race to the top by unions coming together like never before. We're going to end in-work poverty, end fire and rehire, and cease all of these exploitative employment models that are at the core of the economy in the UK today. But secondly, I'm here to tell you that we are going to bring people together. We're going to say We're fighting against racism. We're fighting against all forms of discrimination, inequality and poverty. Every person counts, or no person counts. And we're going to rebuild the welfare state. Every public service counts, or no public service counts. So look, final point. Saying enough's enough is only the start. Please be with us. Are you up? Are you up for the fight for a new deal for workers and a new social settlement? Are you up? Are you up for building collectivism to deliver change? If you mean it, and I know you do, we're going to fight for it, and I'm telling you this, I guarantee you this, if we bring people together, we're going to deliver it. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much to Dave Ward. And Dave was talking about how all public services matter, and one of our public services that matters loads is our education system. And I'm going to now invite the leader of one of our teaching unions. I'm going to invite Patrick Roach, the General Secretary of the NAS UWT, to take the platform. Welcome, Patrick.
Thanks very much, Ross. Thank you very much. It's fantastic to see so many people here today demonstrating against this government's cuts to our public services and to our jobs. I have to say, representing a teachers' union, we have failed. This has got to be the biggest class size that I've ever had to teach. And I want to thank you for it, colleagues. Today we stand together, united against the biggest squeeze on our living standards for half a century, fighting back against a decade of pay cuts, fighting back against racial inequality, racial injustice, gender inequality, rising levels of poverty, destitution and the race to the bottom. And you know, when the Prime Minister says that he's going to be attacking migrants and asylum seekers, we say that's all a ruse to deflect attention away from a decade of failure. We know, colleagues, that they don't care. But we do. And we all deserve better. And when they tell teachers that they're going to have to work harder and longer for less, when they allow employers to fire and rehire our members, when they allow umbrella companies to make millions at the expense of our members, the expense of children and schools, and when they try to attack our trade unions for standing up for the rights of our members, we say we won't stop, we won't stand by, and we will do whatever it takes to take action to defend our members. Emergency. And we won't allow our members to pay the price with cuts to their pay and a tax on their pensions. Colleagues, children deserve better and our members deserve better. And if the government can find the money to write off billions that they've wasted in dodgy procurement during the pandemic, if they can find millions a year to bankroll their crony donors and line their own pockets, then we can find the money to give teachers a decent pay rise, starting with 12% this year. And finally, colleagues, I want to make absolutely clear here today that in the event that teachers' pay awards don't as a minimum meet our demands, we will be balloting our members to take national industrial action from November in England, Scotland and Wales. The fight back continues, colleagues. Solidarity.
Thank you so much, Patrick. And another vitally important sector that kept on poverty pay is our shop workers. So I'd like you all to put your hands together and give a huge welcome to Jane Jones, who is the president of USDO. Thank you, Jane.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. So, I am the president of USDO, but I'm really proud to be a shop worker. Thank you. Friends, we're demonstrating today so that the voices of real working people are heard loud and clear in the corridors of power, because enough is enough. Working people deserve so much better than this. We work hard, we show up every day, and we do the jobs that keep the country running, and we really deserve respect. But this government, they've laughed at us and when they've partied through the pandemic, and now, after writing off millions and millions of pounds for their mates, they are now telling us that we are the ones that still have to pay for the pandemic, and hard times are inevitable, and this is all down to global factors. And that there's nothing actually to do with the government, and there's nothing that they can do. But this is a crisis of their making. Make no mistake, this is a Tory cost of living crisis. They're ripping away at the social security safety net and ripping apart the fabric of our society. And they are failing at every turn to take action we need, urgent action to stop people falling through the cracks of poverty. Last year, 1 in 20 of our members told us they skip meals to pay bills every month. And this week we found that this has actually gone up to 1 in 4. 1 in 4 of the people who are working hard to keep food on Britain's tables can't actually afford to put food on their own tables. And instead of tackling this, the government is hamstrung in infighting, sullied by scandal, doing nothing other than to save itself. While they play politics rather than governing, our communities are paying the price. Workers need a pay rise and a new deal. A new deal that gives every worker decent pay and secure hours. A new deal that transforms our social security system into a proper safety net. A new deal where working people can thrive rather than just struggling to survive. We cannot accept that workers are condemned to live on poverty pay, and they are not even guaranteed the working hours they need to get just from 1 week to the next. Shop workers, distribution workers, manufacturing workers in constituency and constituency are watching. We need action, and we need action now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. And can I just repeat to all of you, we have still thousands and thousands of our members in Whitehall, so come on in to Parliament Square, queue in, stand together. We need to get as many. Disabled workers are some of the worst affected by this cost of living crisis, and I'd like you to give Dave a huge welcome.
Good afternoon, friends and comrades. I'm Dave Allen, and I'm a disabled activist and campaigner. I chair the Disabled Members Committee of my union, Unite, and I also co-chair the TUC Disabled Workers Committee with my colleague Annie Galpin from the National Union of Journalists. Today, comrades, I bring you solidarity from over 1 million disabled people at work and many more disabled people who can't get employment because of their impairments. Disabled workers have been facing crisis after crisis. 6 in 10 COVID-19 deaths were disabled people. And what did this government do? They partied while our loved ones died. They gave out billions in COVID contracts to their mates while disabled people couldn't afford the basics for life. Disabled workers have been hard by COVID. In fact, 2 in 5 disabled workers have been pushed into hardship during the crisis. And disabled workers were twice as likely to need to visit a food bank as our non-disabled peers. Now we are facing a huge cost of living crisis. We often face higher household costs like energy and transport, and the government have no long-term plan to address this. We need to see changes, reform of social security, of access to work and of the economy to ensure a decent standard of living for disabled workers. I'm also here today because I'm angry. I'm angry that disabled workers continue to earn less than non-disabled people. I'm angry that disabled workers on average earn £3,500 a year less than anyone else. So effectively, we work for 52 days a year for nothing. I'm also angry that disabled women have an even bigger pay gap. It's time that employers are made to face up to this. And can I say, it's important that we as disabled people do not forget the social model of disability. It is the model that is accepted by the TUC and disabled people's organisations. And I'm being told to finish, but can I finally call on all disabled activists and workers to support the RMT. A victory for the RMT is a victory for all of us. Solidarity!
Solidarity, and thank you to Dave. And can I tell you that I've just had news that the back of our march has only just reached Trafalgar Square. We are massive. So our next speaker that I'm going to introduce to you represents older workers. And I'd like you all to give a big welcome to Jan Short, who is the General Secretary of our National Pensioners Convention.
Thank you. It's absolutely brilliant to be here today. I bring you greetings from 1.1 million pensioners in the National Pensioners Convention. We don't just stand for the pensioners of today, we stand for the pensioners of tomorrow. Now, we're squarely behind Demand Better because we know your income dictates how you live. Your income also dictates how you get your state pension. Now, if you are around 50 or just 50 plus, we already know 1 in 3 of you will be simply and totally reliable on state pension. And your state pension is absolute rubbish. It's the most inadequate pension, not just in the UK, in Europe and across most of the world. Now, pensioners are quite used to making choices. They often make choices between heat or eat. But this crippling inflation has driven that even beyond the bounds that they can manage. So our message today is to all pensioners of the future. We stand for a decent state pension for everyone. At the moment, if it was implemented, the state pension would be £245 a week instead of 141 or 179, whichever one you're on. Now, 245 is still less than half the average wage, and it is affordable. So, none of us can stop ageing. So what I'm here today to say is all 4 nations of the TUC, all trade unions, all community groups, all workers, we need to stand together and make a plea to make sure that pensioners of the future have a dignified retirement. Now, it's not just an issue for the MPC, it's an issue for everybody. We were you once, and you will be us in the future. If there's any doubt that you should join a trade union, I'm going to tell you, when I went into MPC, I met a lovely gentleman called Frank Cooper. He was 98 years old in January, and today he has served 80 years of trade unionism. So get there, a trade union. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jan. You're to represent our lead for workers, young workers on the TUC General Council. He's also a GMB activist, and his name is Charlie Gray. Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you, comrades, brothers and sisters. Young workers are at the thin edge of the multiple crises we are facing. If you're under 22, you don't even get the so-called national living wage. The cost of living crisis doesn't take into account whether you're under 23 or not. You don't get a discount on your bills or on your rent, but you do on your wages. We need so much more than this government is refusing to give us. Ending the wage banding in the minimum wage is only part of that. We need at least £10 an hour now. The pandemic was an opportunity like no other for bosses to do the right thing. But time and time again, so many have been missing in action or working directly against our interests. I'll give you one example. The restaurant chain Tomahawk. They abused the furlough scheme by taking money out of the pockets of workers, saying it was a loan. During a global pandemic, they took money out of the pockets of mainly young workers. Absolutely disgusting. But those workers, they weren't alone. They had their union GMB, so they could stand up for themselves, and they won, and their pay was returned to them. And I'm not just saying this. I'm not just saying this to tell you all how brilliant GMB Union are, because we are, but to show you the power in standing up for yourself and for each other, the power in organising. We have to demand better, because what we have now is so dire, and a better Britain is possible. A Britain in which work pays, where we as workers are given dignity at work and are treated with respect. And a Britain where public services get the investment that they're crying out for. Because we need to get rid of this Tory government for that to happen. But we can't wait. We can't wait until the next general election for change. We need to be building power and winning in our communities and in our workplaces now. And as daunting as it may seem, communities and trade unions across the country are winning for working people. So I've got a couple of things to ask of you. I presume most of you are in trade unions, but if you're not, join up and stand shoulder to shoulder with millions of working people fighting and winning across the country. And more importantly, get involved, become a workplace rep, organise your colleagues. We cannot wait for the next Tories. We can't wait for the Tories over there to do their jobs. Because they won't. If they've not been partying, they've been asleep at the wheel and they're doing nothing to help us. Let's not just demand better, let's make it happen, comrades. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlie. And it is now my absolute pleasure to introduce Mick Lynch from the RMT.
Good afternoon, everybody. Greetings from the RMT. Thank you for the RMT members that have turned out in numbers with their banners all over this square. Thank you to Bella, a young black woman, the future of this union. We are on strike today for our cleaners. We're on strike next week. There is no compromise that has been given to us. And the message is clear. We are in a class struggle now. If your conditions are being attacked, if your pay is being attacked, if your jobs are being stripped from you, you are in a class struggle. And there are people over there in that parliament who are meant to be on our side who've got to answer the question, which side are you on? Are you going to be with us, or are you going to sit on the sidelines while these Tories butcher the... We are the working people of this country. Together, we are unstoppable. Get up and fight or live on your knees. The struggle is on. Bring it on. This is the fight of our lives. Stand up and fight. Victory to the RMT.
Thank you so much to Mick Lynch from the RMT, and solidarity to all his members. I'm now going to introduce Mike Clancy, General Secretary of Prospect.
So, do you all feel really good at the moment? Have you enjoyed the day? What are you going to do on Monday? What are you going to do on Tuesday? What are you going to do in the weeks ahead? Because they believe all you're going to do is march today and it's going to be all right in the future because they're going to do what they want. So if today really means something, you've got to go back to every single workplace, particularly in the private sector, and you've got to demonstrate that trade unionism is alive, that trade unionism will make the difference, and you will make the difference to the working class of this country. I had a clever speech. I can tell you about 91,000 job cuts in the civil service. I can tell you about the Channel 4 privatisation. I can tell you about the energy market that's broken. I can tell you about the cost of living. But every single one of you know all about it. So Monday morning, it starts. Tuesday, it continues. We go back to workplaces. We organise. We win. We make it our future. Thank you.
Jill Walton, who's the Chief Executive of the Royal College of Midwives, frontline workers.
Friends, I'm a midwife. For most of my life, I've told people that being a midwife is the best job in the world. And in my heart, I believe that. Like so many midwives, I feel privileged to care for women and families at such an important time in their lives. But I am finding it harder and harder to advocate for a career in midwifery. When I look round and I see the experience of my members, 57% say they are actively considering leaving because they are burnt out, understaffed and overworked. Only 8% say they feel valued by the government. And now, despite their promises for more midwives, we have 500 fewer midwives working in the NHS than a year ago. Midwives and maternity support workers are using food banks. They are leaving work for retail jobs. Midwives can't afford to put petrol in their cars. And the experience is significantly worse for our Black, Asian and mixed ethnicity midwives who are less likely to be promoted, more likely to be disciplined and experience high levels of bullying and undermining behaviours. They tell me they are broken. It doesn't have to be this way. The way our public services are funded is a political choice, and I know the British public would choose for midwives, support workers and the NHS to be properly funded and properly paid. They worked through the pandemic, putting the women they care for first. Babies don't stop being born. Over 100,000 were born during COVID and a midwife was there for every single one of them. Now is the time to signal to the government the real appreciation for the sacrifices they made. Years of austerity have seen pay in the NHS and our public services decrease to the point where vacancy rates are making services unpaid. Our midwives deserve better. The women they care for deserve better. The country deserves better. Stand with us.
And we will stand with Joe, and we will stop the scandal of cutbacks. When they say cut back, we say fight back. When they say cut back, cut back, cut back, cut back. And here's someone who's used to fighting back is the General Secretary of the FBU, Matt Wright.
Comrades, sisters, brothers, friends, greetings from the Fire Brigades Union to this fantastic march and rally today. You know, this week for firefighters is a particular week of commemoration because it is 5 years since the Grenfell Tower fire. And we wanted to mark that. Grenfell Tower was a monstrous crime against working class people, driven by a corrupt. They are turning this city and cities all over this country into playgrounds for the rich, while the workers who drive our buses, work in our shops, teach our kids, struggle to pay the bills. That's the reality of life in one of the richest countries in the world. We have heard a lot in recent weeks about oligarchs. Well, frankly, I don't care which country oligarchs come from. I don't want any oligarchs making decisions about politics in this society. We've heard about the crisis that workers faced during COVID, and let's remind ourselves, it was the working class who saw this society through COVID, while others made millions in profits. Others fleeced the public sector with their crony contracts. And now they want us to pay again. And these people in these offices around here will tell us that there is no alternative. And I'll say this, I've said it before, their people, their class have always told us that there is no alternative. And our people, our class, have only made progress when we've ignored them. We never would have defeated slavery if we'd listened to the people here. We never would have won the right to vote if we'd listened to the people here. Women would never have won the right to vote if they'd listened to people here. We never would have won our National Health Service if we'd listened to the people here. We have only made progress when we've stood up together, organised and fought back. And that is what we have to do today. Stand together, stand organised, fight back.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you to the FBU. And I'm now going to turn to the leader of a union from the culture sector, another great group of key workers who've had a really hard time over the past few years. So can I now introduce Paul Fleming, General Secretary of Equity.
Hello, comrades, and thank you all for being here. And a lot of people have spoken about all the stuff that goes on in there, or the chat that goes on in there, or the people that are going on in there. But I don't want to talk about them. I want to talk about us. I want to talk about power. And I want to talk about the power that I hope you all feel marching up and down the streets of London today. Because this is not a movement that used to happen or that will happen or needs to be organised or we need to want. It is a movement that exists. And I want to tell you, I have 47,000 members of Equity. And 80% of the people in the theatres that you march past today, they're union members. 70% of the people you see on television are union members. 80% of the people you see on film are union members. And they are members of a union and they are members of our class. And that means that they share with you those struggles. Because merely a few weeks ago, we were stood outside Phoenix Dance in Leeds, the P&O of the performing arts, who wanted to put our members on £100 a month. £100 a month. We turned up, we protested, and within 6 hours, it was over. That's power. That's real. And when Andrew Lloyd Webber is letting our members go on Cinderella, is that any different from a seafarer in Dover or Kent? No, it is not. Because our members share those struggles and so we share the answer. Because demanding better isn't about the things that we deserve. It's not about that bare minimum, £15 an hour minimum wage, proper public services, arts defended and invested in, a Channel 4 that's owned and run by the public who watch it and the workforce who run it. It's about better. Because what are trade unions? Every trade union is there to ensure its members can be artists, can live as artists. Because what is it about? That education we provide, that bit of pay we provide, that work-life balance we provide. It's about being artists. So as much as our members are artists and workers, you too deserve to have flourishing artistic lives and 4-day working weeks. So let's not just demand what we want. Let's demand what we aspire to and could never have believed was possible. Let's demand better. Thanks, comrades.
Thank you so much to Paul. And let's never forget that our struggle here today unites people across these aisles, but it's also part of a global struggle. And so now I'm going to invite Asad Rahman from War on Want.
Thank you, comrades. And I bring solidarity greetings from War on Want and the Climate Justice Coalition to the Labour movement and to every worker in struggle. Comrades, in every corner of the world, working people aren't just facing one crisis. They're facing a never-ending poverty wages. They're forced into a world where half the world doesn't have access to public services, to energy, to the right to food or decent housing. They're forced into a world where we face a climate crisis that is burning people and the planet. And comrades, it doesn't have to be like this. Just as it doesn't have to be like this in this country, where we have Victorian levels of inequality and poverty. Comrades, it's not because there's not enough wealth in the world. We know that there is enough wealth in the world. It's just that the rich and the billionaires are amassing the wealth while leaving the poor to struggle and barely survive. But it's exactly at this moment, comrades, we have to connect our demands. We have to connect our movements for jobs, for justice and for climate. That we demand a workers-led global Green New Deal. So we're demanding £15 here, but we're demanding living wages for workers everywhere. When we demand food and energy are right for people here, we're demanding it absolutely everywhere. Publicly controlled, for us and not for profit. When we demand and fight for an NHS, we demand and fight for a global NHS, for education, health and housing to be a right for everyone. That when we cut emissions, we're not talking about cutting carbon, we're talking about cutting injustice. Friends, there is an alternative to their politics of racism and division. And it's a fight. And it's a global fight. It's a fight to life and death. And there is only one answer to theirs. Politics of racism and division. It's internationalism. It's solidarity. And it's cooperation. And friends, you know, the reason why the rich and powerful fear people, and you know who they fear the most? It's the trade union movement, because it's us who believe on our banners of not just workers in England, not just workers in the UK, but workers in the world unite. And it's us who believe that together we can build our power and transform this world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Asad. And he's right, it's our movement that needs to unite, but we need to go beyond workers, beyond the trade union movement. We need to link up with anti-poverty campaigners in every community across Britain. And that's why I'm pleased to welcome Fran Heathcote to represent the People's Assembly.
Friends, I want to pay tribute to all workers who stepped up during the pandemic and kept this country running. And what has been
in our reward, a cost of living crisis caused by the relentless drive to maximise profit, a tax on workers fighting to defend their standard of living, even more austerity with cuts and privatisation, civil servants in PCS facing 91,000 job cuts, devastating for low-paid members, but also for the services that we deliver in communities that we live and work in. Such cuts impact on the whole working class. We have now entered a period of deep economic instability. Crises were going to come one after another. These are economic circumstances that will mean real hardship for the entire working class. The unemployed and the disabled will be driven deeper into poverty and misery, as will the so-called working poor. The Tories tell us if we don't have enough to eat or to pay our fuel bills, then we should simply work harder or get better jobs. There are now more food banks in this country than there are job centres, and that's a damning indictment of a society in economic decline. The current fuel crisis doesn't just mean that people will be cold this winter, it means that people will die. Let's remember, none of these services these criminals are destroying were given out of the goodness of their hearts. We fought for those services and we won them, including the NHS that they're intent on destroying through privatisation. We know that the Tories don't give a damn, but they're able to get away with it for a number of reasons. There is no real political opposition. The establishment won't tolerate even the mildest challenge to their plans, to their cuts agenda and to their psychopathic pursuit of profit over the needs of people. They try to silence us. We see the attacks on the RMT. We see comrades arrested on picket lines. Any have to be confronted. We need to stand up to them, and that means organising like never before. We must take our message to the wider movement and beyond. We cannot wait for anyone to come and rescue us. Certainly not Parliament, which with a few honourable exceptions is no more than a den of thieves. We can rely on ourselves, the working class, organised in workplaces and through trade unions. We have to build resistance whenever our class is under attack. We have to organise not just in workplaces, but in every working class community. And more than that, we need to link up our struggles. Let's face facts. The Tories and the state are waging a ruthless war on our class, the working class. Anybody who thinks we can appeal to their better nature or that they're going to stop attacking us is living in fantasy land. They are our class enemies. If our movement doesn't unite and fight back with the same determination that the Tories conduct their war on us, then they will crush us. Today has been fantastic, but the real question is what next? We've always argued that we need united, coordinated campaigns, industrial action to defeat this government of spivs, and that's why we cannot limit our struggle to terms and conditions. As PCS has done over the Rwanda brutal deportation strategy, we have to fight back on behalf of everyone in society being attacked by this government. And that is why my union supports the People's Assembly, on whose behalf I'm speaking. I would urge all unions to affiliate to and help to build the People's Assembly. I would urge you all to join as individuals. Use the QR code, take a leaflet, join the biggest coalition of unions and community groups, fighting back to demand better. We can no longer afford to watch groups of workers isolated in one battle after another. It's going to affect all of us. We should not underestimate the challenges ahead. We face a ruthless enemy. Workers will look to their unions, and we must not be found wanting. Our movement has a real opportunity, and we must fight for members and our class with determination and in unity. I look forward to working with you all. Solidarity.
Thank you. Thank you, Fran. So let's go forward. Let's build our power. Let's build our movement. We will support each other. We will stand together.
me first of all say thanks to each and every person who's turned out here today. Today, tens of thousands of working people, their families and communities, we've had our own vote of confidence or no confidence in this rotten Prime Minister and this rotten government. But we know in the Labour movement, it's not enough just to call out the government for all of its failings. It's what are we going to do about it that's important. So let's go away from here. Pledge to build our movement, to get more people to join the trade union movement, to make sure when those RMT workers take strike action next week, or the posties in a few weeks' time, or any worker is stood on a picket line, they never stand alone. We always stand in solidarity with them. And I'm going to finish on this last point. There's a sister here holding up a banner that says, "Together we rise." And that is what our movement is all about. And I know, despite all the challenges, all the pressures, all of the heartache that working people have faced, when working people and their families stand together, when we fight together, take action together, organise together, we win together. Thanks, comrades. Hope you have a brilliant day. Solidarity. We'll never be defeated. We'll never be defeated.